Welcome back to Techies webinars. Techies is a page in the Times of India that we started a little over a year ago. It's a page for and by India's technology professionals, engineers, engineering students. We write about the wonderful work that Indian technologists are doing for the world. We write about new trends in technology, new opportunities in India for engineers, about programming languages that are becoming important. We talk to professors in the IITs and other leading engineering institutions on emerging trends. We started Techies webinars a few weeks ago. We are into the 9th in the series. A lot of our focus has been on skilling and learning and new opportunities. I have with me my colleague Shilpa, and together we'll moderate the discussion today. Today we have with us Professor from IIT Madras, Dr. Balaraman Ravindran. He heads the Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at IIT Madras. The center is a leading interdisciplinary AI research center in India. He's the Mindtree faculty fellow and professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Madras. Dr. Ravindran received his PhD from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and his master's degree from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has nearly 2 decades of research experience in AI, ML, and specifically reinforcement learning. Currently, his research interests span the areas of social network analysis, geometric deep learning, and reinforcement learning. He advises the government on several initiatives related to AI and data science. He has published over 100 papers in journals and conferences. He has been quoted in top publications such as MIT Technology Review and Harvard Business Review. He has been closely collaborating with various industrial research labs such as Google Research, Intel Research, Ericsson R&D, ECS, Robert Bosch, KLA Tencor, Applied Materials, GE, Adobe Research, IBM India Research Labs, Yahoo Labs, and General Motors, working on applications of data mining and machine learning techniques to hard real-world problems. So the professor will talk to us for about 25 to 30 minutes. He has a presentation, after which we'll open it up for questions. There's a chat box available where you can send in your questions, and Shilpa and I together will ask the professor those questions. Over to you, Professor Balaraman Ravindran. Welcome to Techies webinars.
Thank you, Sujit, and I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me. So can I start my
you can.
sharing my screen?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. So I'm going to talk about AI ML in India. So before I get into talking about the state of AI and machine learning research, jobs, etc. in India, I thought I'll start off with trying to answer the question in as simple terms as possible as to what is AI. Yeah. So what is AI? People have all kinds of misconceptions that range from, thinking of AI as a Terminator who is going to, herald the end of the human race, all the way to AI is now the panacea, the cure for everything, and then you have all this angels trumpeting the arrival of AI. They're going to solve all the problems we have, right? But at the end of the day, AI is nothing but a piece of software, right? AI is not magic. AI is certainly not evil, right? It's just a piece of software. You have algorithms that drive the software behind it, and then you have all the hardware that needs to go along with it. You need the machines and so on and so forth. And as with any software, AI could have bugs in them. You debug them. You can pull the plug on AI and everything, right? So I would really not want people to assign mystical properties, whether evil or good, to AI. It's another technology. That's finally implemented as a piece of software. So let's keep that in mind. Keep it at the back of your mind, and then go on, right? So why should you learn about AI? Right? Now that we know that it's just another, to put it very slightly disparagingly, it's another latest IT trend, right? Why should you learn about AI? Right? But because AI is everywhere. The technology that goes behind AI drives everything. So you go fire a search query on Google, right? The results that you get are very much informed by what AI is running behind it, right? And so people go on Facebook, the front suggestions that you get or the boxes that you see on Facebook, all of these come from an AI algorithms that are running on the background, right? Or if you're trying to get to somewhere on using Google Maps, AI again. Or if you're expecting Amazon and Flipkart and or any of the food delivery guys to come and give things to you on time, there's a bit of AI that is running in the background, helping them find the right way of routing things and looking at the logistics and so on and so forth. Right? And of course, most of the advertising that you see nowadays is driven by AI. Online that you see is driven by AI. There's significant amounts of work that goes in there, but it's just not your online behavior. Now, in fact, I jokingly say that many of the younger generation kids talk to AI more often than they talk to human beings. So you have your Google, you have the AI on the phone talking to you, you have Amazon Alexa and then Google Home. Everywhere you have this voice assistants that you could talk to, but just not that, right? AI has even more serious implications. A lot of AI is now being deployed in looking at improving performance of radiology analysis, whether it be breast cancer screening or understanding chest X-rays, or even looking at eye care and looking at fundus images and trying to do more fine-grained analysis at a faster pace than humans could. Right, and not just these kind of esoteric applications. These are some areas where AI is getting into, which we didn't think were possible a few decades back. Here are a couple of headlines that I pulled out. Right. So Maryland courts begin using AI in bail decisions. So they are basically looking at the past history of all kinds of offenders and deciding who to give bail to when they apply for bail. Right. And you also have other extreme things like AI is transforming lending and loan management. So if you find that suddenly you're being denied loans at a bank, it's probably because there was an AI sitting there and deciding that, this is probably not a high risk, loan. And it might come to a point where in the future you might have AIs making decisions about admissions to schools and colleges and everything. Right? So the point is, this is a technology that has tremendous potential, and it has started pervading every aspect of your life. And so whether you're going to work in AI or not, it's not necessarily that you have to be a data scientist or an AI engineer to know about AI. You need to know about AI to know what the impact of this technology is going to be on your life. Right? You should know what are the right kind of questions that you need to ask when AI is making a decision that affects you intimately. Right? So that's one of the reasons people have to really look at AI. Right? So AI is not new. Right? So this is a commemorative plaque from the Dartmouth project, which was the first gathering where the term artificial intelligence was used. Right? And this happened back in 1956. So the Dartmouth College, a group of researchers got together and where they basically wanted to proceed on the basis of the conjecture that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Okay, I'm going to iterate it, made to simulate it. Okay, sorry. They never were looking at making a machine intelligent, right? They're only making it simulate intelligence. There's a big difference here, right? So that is where the goal of AI started, right? So let's see whether we can make intelligence more so systematized that a machine can simulate it. And that has been the goal of AI, right? So replicating human behavior is a hallmark of intelligence, not necessarily to make the machine, in some ill-defined way, intelligent, right? And that is when we get into all this Terminator nightmares. Right? As long as you think of it as a program that is simulating an algorithm that behaves like a human, you're all fine, right? So what are the components of intelligence? When I say that we are trying to simulate intelligence, what are the components of intelligence? So this is a kind of a classification that I come up with. So the first thing is on perception. So the ability to see, hear the world, so that you can actually interact with the world. The second component is cognition. So understanding what you perceive, whether it is text or speech or the visual scene that you see around you. So that's the second component of intelligence. And the third is reasoning about what is it that we have, perceived and then making decisions based on that. So we have all kinds of logic and planning, and you could potentially recommend things to others and so on. So forth. All this comes under reasoning and decision making. And the final component of intelligence is learning and adaptation. right? So can you get reason or learn to perceive or learn to understand things just by looking at examples of what we call data, right? So these are the 4 components of intelligence, right? And in keeping with trying to simulate each of these components, AI has developed not as a single technology. There's nothing like an AI technology. There are technologies behind AI. Right. So let's take perception. So there are broadly you can think of this as falling under computer vision, where you look at a picture, you try to identify objects in the picture. It could be faces, it could be animals, or it could be tumors, as we looked at in the radiology cases. Right. Whatever it is, you try to identify objects in the picture, or it could be speech processing, where you hear a voice, you try to identify the speaker or the words that are being spoken, or you try to identify if there is a music, etc., etc. So this basically your auditory processing, right? And the third perceptual task is on what we call natural language processing, where you take a piece of text and then you try to identify, the phrases, the syntax, and the various entities that are being mentioned in the text, and so on and so forth, right? And then you break it up into more structured representation, right? And AI has had great success in it. Mostly all the hype that we hear about AI has been because of the success they have had in perception. And it's not without merit, because for a long time, people, were struggling to make computers perceive the world very well. Right? Until about 15, 20 years ago, whether it was computer vision or the speech processing, computers lagged behind humans significantly. So I'm going to show you what's been happening more recently. Right. The second set of technologies is to do with cognition. So you could look at the equivalent of vision here would be something like scene understanding. So can you describe a picture, right? Or can you describe a face to me? I don't want you to just say, okay, there is a face. Can you tell me something about the face, right? Or speech understanding, right? Not just like the spoken language, spoken words, but can you look at pauses, right? And all the non-verbal cues that humans are so good at picking up from speech. I mean, I could be saying the same sentence as somebody else, but you would understand it very differently depending on the tone at which I say these things. Can we get to that level of understanding of speech, right? And similarly for natural language understanding, can you read a text and understand idioms or sarcasm or sentiments, or conduct a free-ranging conversation with the human without having to say that, oh, I don't understand it. Can you repeat it every so often? Right, but it's still work in progress. Right? AI has still not cracked this. There's still a lot of work to be done. And the third class of technologies is reasoning and decision making. I'm not going to get into details here, but a lot of work has been happening in this space. People talk about theories of logic, decision theory, game theory, rules, plans, but still AI is not a clear winner, except in some nice games, hard games, but still they are very well structured games like Go and chess and so on and so forth. AI is still not a clear winner here, a long way to go. But in popular imagination, see, this reasoning and decision making and learning are considered the true hallmarks of intelligence, and AI is still not there yet, certainly not at a human level yet. So that brings us to the last question in last module, which is adaptation and learning. Right? So what about adaptation and learning? So I want to start off with a slight caveat here. Right? When I say that an AI is learning, it's not really learning in the human sense of learning, right? So it learns in the machine sense of learning, or machine learning. That's why we have this AI and machine learning in the title itself today, right? So the goal of machine learning is something slightly simpler, more structured than what would be right? Here, the goal is I'll give you a lot of examples. So I'll say that, okay, the top row are all pictures of airplanes, right? The second row of all pictures of automobiles. The third row is all pictures of birds, right? And so on and so forth. Now, given these kinds of examples, I want you to learn a rule or learn a function that when I give you a new image, it will tell me whether it's a dog or a deer or a cat, just by looking at the image, without me having to tell you what constitutes a dog or what constitutes a cat, right? So that's basically what machine learning is, and it's actually, I mean, it's not trivial, right? It's very hard. It's still a challenging problem, but it's kind of slightly artificial when you consider how you would normally learn, right? And so this is where AI, I mean, machine learning and AI have had tremendous success in the last about maybe 15, 16 years. right? And it's completely revolutionized the space, right? So this new technology called deep learning, and deep learning is again not a single technology, but for simplicity's sake, we'll call it as a single technology, has really revolutionized this whole learning and adaptation bit, right? So we started off with this challenge that people had called Imagenet, which is essentially something what I was describing to you earlier, right? So I'll give you a bunch of images, right? And then categories for those images. You have to learn from this and be able to classify a new image. So a human being, when given this task, right, would perform at about a 5% error rate. That would mean that if I show you 100 pictures at random, you're likely to get 95 correct and about 5 wrong on an average. Right? If we show you some other 100, it will be slightly more or less. So the machines were actually doing pretty poorly, and then deep learning came into the picture. And then they started off by saying, oh, okay, from 25% error, I can bring it down to 16%. Then year after year, the Imagenet competition, the deep learning systems kept improving until it came to a point where the error rate they were able to achieve was 3.6%, right? Which would be superhuman performance, right? And it didn't stop with just this kind of image labeling task. It also went into speech recognition. How well are you able to, recognize words that are spoken? Again, the human accuracy was about 95%, and the machine was able to beat that. A deep learning system was able to beat that around 2015 or so. And it's not just this kind of simple perceptual task. I mean, people also went and did something more fanciful, like artistic applications like this. So you could give it a doodle, like you see here, right? And then it will produce a Monet for you. Right? So again, that was trained using the same kind of machine learning procedure I was just describing to you. It's just that they use slightly different deep learning architectures to get this. So this is amazing, right? So they're getting to a point where we can do all kinds of really interesting stuff, especially in the perceptual side of things, right? So the current thinking in the machine learning space is all you need to succeed is large volumes of examples, right? This is data. And so some problems you don't even need data, you just need some simulation models, right? Like in games and other things. And a lot of investment that goes into building successful products, right? This is in basically generating a lot of data, right? So here all kinds of phrases like data is the new oil, or sometimes the data is the new water, etc. Okay. And so this is kind of the current state. And of course, people are pushing the border. There are a lot of other questions that they're answering and asking and answering. But a lot of successful businesses are built around this kind of technology right now. Okay. So I just want to talk about one term, right? So people often use the word data science, or the phrase data science in conjunction with AI. It's AI and data science. So what is data science? We generate huge volumes of data now, right? So I mean, all of us are online, and the amount of data that we generate is huge. So when we started looking at this kind of data-rich environments, we first started talking about data management systems, where we wanted to organize the data, make sure we're able to process the data quickly, right, and then make it easy to access, so that you can do some very, very simple processing on the data. Right. And then what happened, we started developing all this data mining technologies, which borrowed ideas from statistics and machine learning that we saw, which were able to detect patterns in the data, not necessarily just answer queries of patterns that existed, but also discover new patterns that you didn't know a priori existed in the data. Right? And then this has evolved into what I call now a science, right? Where it is not a static data that you're looking at and trying to find patterns, but you're recording phenomenon that are happening around you, right? Whether it could be traffic flow, it could be people's behavior on the internet, right? Or it could be biological molecules interactions. So you're basically starting to observe phenomenon and recording it, right? And you're going to treat it like you would treat any scientific discipline, right? So you first observe, and then based on the observations, you build models, right, that describe the phenomenon that you just observed. And then you make predictions based on the models, right? And then you test these predictions on the actual phenomenon. So if you're able to predict everything, the phenomenon is, all aspects of the phenomenon correctly, then you have a great model. More often than not, you wouldn't get it right the first time around. So you go back, you try to refine your model, or you make more observations, then you do this cycle again. So this is what I would call as data science, where you have to worry about all aspects. So when you talk about observation, right? So you have to worry about data management. It's not just somebody just writing down on ledger. So a lot of technologies are involved in each one of these 4 phases. And the classical data mining or data analytics really does not exploit much of the understanding that we have from the domain, right? So it rediscovers everything we know about the domain from the data, which is a waste of time, waste of effort, right? So I would say that we have to really involve domain experts closely in the workflow. And that is when you get true data science. So data science is like this really interdisciplinary effort. So this is like a pitch that I have for why we have a strong interdisciplinary center here. And the reason AI and data science go together often, much of machine learning, right, is developed in this kind of a data science setting, right? That is why you keep hearing AI and data science. So data science is much more than AI, right? And but AI is also more than data science. I mean, there are aspects of AI which don't rely only on data, which we don't talk about that much nowadays. But so where they intersect is this space of machine learning. Right, so this is why they go together. So that's I thought I'll clarify that, right? So I just go ahead and finish, right? So I don't break for questions.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I'm going to talk about AI and data science in India, right? So that's basically what we're looking at. So in some sense, we have been a bit fortunate because our government actually woke up a little early, and so we are actually one of the first countries to formulate a national AI policy. Right, so it was originally spearheaded by Niti Aayog, and they talked about setting up a very vibrant research ecosystem around the country and fantastic interfaces with the industry, startups, and academic research. So there was a very nicely laid out blueprint for the country. And right now, the Ministry of Information Technology, Mindtree, is in charge with pushing ahead with the National AI Mission, which was launched last year. Right? If people want to look at what they are doing, you could look at indiaai.in. So that's a web page that they have this. So there's been some amount of movement, traction from the government side, and what this enables is also for the industries to get motivated to start looking at things and investing long term. Right? So here are some headlines that I picked up. They're from early in this year, right? So data analytics is to become like $16 billion industry by 2025. This is in India, right? It's from sister magazine, the sister newspaper, right? And also there is another article about India is expected to have 1.5 lakh jobs in data science by end of 2020 and so on and so forth, right? So there's a lot of investments coming in and a lot of money value, the work that people see. But the caveat is this was pre-COVID. Okay, so what is the situation post-COVID? Right. So the current scenario. So I actually picked up a few nuggets from this Analytics Labs survey, which is in March 2020, just before the whole COVID thing blew up in our face, like 1st March, they were making a prediction of about 113,000, like 113,000 jobs in data science and AI by the end of the year. And now when they did the survey again in June 2020, it had come down to about 80,000 jobs. It's not been decimated, right? So that's good news, right? It's not but still there's a lot of openings, right? And here is this other thing where people were saying that data science jobs are like immediately available or will be within a month. About 45% of the people surveyed said that they have jobs available very shortly, that in data science jobs, right? And then the rest, of course, had a horizon of up to a year. So I think the scenario is fine. I mean, these numbers talk for themselves, right? But I also have another take on it. I think this whole new push towards more remote work is actually going to enable a lot more opportunities for AI, and we are going to see more newer job opportunities opening up. Okay. So that's something that's certainly going to happen, and because there are multiple companies which are now saying that they're going to keep a bulk of their workforce at home, right? And it's not just purely IT companies. For example, Cabin Care, CK, those guys have basically shut down their entire physical workspace, right? So it's not just in not a TCS or Wipro or something. Those guys are going to say work from home. A lot of other people are going to explore this. And once you get online, right, you're going to start generating data, and that gives you a lot more scope for using AI. Right? So a lot of industry labs out there. I mean, of course, guys like Google, IBM, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. They do very, very high quality research, in fact. And there are many startups that use AI technologies. I believe India is like the 3rd in the world in terms of AI startup ecosystem. But one of the things I noticed is not many of the unicorns that we have here are heavily based on AI. I mean, they have fantastic ideas, but they still are not reliant on AI for that to work, right? And we eventually should move to a point where we should get there. Sorry, you had a point?
No. Okay.
Okay. Fine. And we also need larger investment from the government, right? And what I would call a more forgiving environment for startups. We're still not there yet. And till about I think a couple of years back, we had only about $100 million venture capital funding for startups, compared to several billions that were sunk in one industrial park in China. But then I was looking at an Invest India report recently that envisages up to $50 billion funding for AI research and startup in the next 15 years. So that is hope. But another point I want to make is not just AI, but we also need to develop other deep technology areas to develop a better ecosystem like quantum computing or blockchains and things like that. Very quickly, I don't know how I'm doing on time. Maybe
that's fine. Go on. Yeah.
So then talking about the status of academic institutions in India. So the primary output from academic institutions are going to be research papers, right? I'll come to that in a bit. So the research centers we have now, many research centers all around the country. And so one of the earlier ones that was started as an interdisciplinary center for data science and AI was at Iitm Madras. So I'll say a few more slides on this later in the talk, depending on how much time we have. But all the IITs, the main triple IITs, all of these have large AI centers, and IISc and IIT Hyderabad have data science and AI departments itself, right? So they are pushing ahead with that. And let's look at the papers that have been published by India. These are the research, cutting edge research topics, right? So this is a study that we are doing currently at IITM. So we picked some of the top venues where the best researchers in the world published it. It could be from Google or Microsoft or Stanford or Berkeley and so on and so forth, right? And we looked at the number of papers that have been published over the last 3 years. And you can see that the number of papers has been increasing, every year on year.
Right.
And then look at the graph on the right. These are number of papers published by Indians.
Okay.
That's very and you can see that again the numbers are going up year on year, but the axes are very different. Much smaller number than what is happening globally.
But the numbers are going up.
But the numbers are going up year on year. These are Indians.
Yeah. Okay.
There is a catch here. I think you can already see it.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So there is a follow-up. So the number of authors, right, who are in India, got onto the other graph is that last bar. Okay? So that's still about 450.
Okay.
Right? That's not bad. But the rest were Indians who were educated in India and then moved elsewhere, and they are doing this cutting edge research.
Okay.
Those are the three categories. The first one are the people who did their undergraduates in India and then went abroad. The second are the people who did their masters in India and went abroad and are publishing. And the third bar is the people who did their PhDs in India and are now abroad and publishing.
Okay.
Right.
What is that first one, by the way? What is the NURLPS?
NURIPS. I mean, these are names of conferences. These are the top venues where people.
Where is that held? That conference?
It moves around year on year. I think this year it's again going to be in Canada. So
okay.
Moves year on year. Every one of these conferences moves.
Okay.
So the first one is a deep network conference. The second one is a vision, then AI, then machine learning and language. So I've picked from different areas, the top conferences in various areas. Right. And so I just wanted to point out there's a significant brain drain that's happening. So we are Indians are doing great in terms of, if I produce the similar kinds of graphs for other nationalities, they look similar. Right. So the American bar will be slightly higher, but the Chinese and the Indian bars look similar.
Okay.
Right. But they are publishing from US and Europe and Australia and other places, not from India.
Okay.
So that's one sad part. And again, another thing which is bad in all over the world, but particularly so in India, nearly 90% of all the researchers that you saw on the previous page from India or from India, those are guys who are in India, right? The last bar. Right? Nearly 90% of them are male. And year on year, the ratio has actually been becoming worse. Right? So that's something that we really need to pick up and move on, right? And there are many degree programs that are offered. These are formal degree programs. So we offer a 5-year dual degree program in data science at IIT Madras. It's an interdisciplinary program. So the students get a BTech in any of our engineering disciplines and an MTech in data science. So you could find people graduating with a BTech in chemical engineering and an MTech in data science. And IIC and IIT Delhi are offering an MTech in AI, the BTech in IIIT Delhi and IIT Hyderabad. And there are dual degree programs in data science in many of the ICERs. But more importantly, AICT is very strongly considering approving BTechs or bachelor's degrees in AI and data science, right? And I think it's probably going to start this year itself, right? So some of the colleges will be offering BE in AI and data science this year itself, right? So apart from these formal degrees, AI training programs have just boomed like anything, right? So
Okay.
you can turn around everywhere. People are talking about, oh, this is my data science thing. In 6 months, I'll get you, 10 times your salary, etc., etc.
Okay.
And apart from these companies doing it, there are several online certification programs that are run with academic partners like IIIT Hyderabad, IIIT Bangalore, IIT Hyderabad. All these guys offer an online version. IIT BX is there.
Mm-hmm.
And IMBX is also there. They are also offering degrees in data science or certification programs in data science, right? So I want to talk about one really exciting thing that we are doing at IIT Madras. I'm not sure if you have already heard of this, but we are starting a 3-year online BSc degree in programming and data science.
Okay.
This we are very positive about, and we think this is going to be very it's going to be a big thing in the market, right? So what are we doing here is that it's a 3-year program. So the first year it's going to be all kinds of foundational level courses, basically basic math and things even like English, because it's a BSc program that conforms with the structure put out by UGC, right? So we have to make sure that the students get all the breadth and everything. So all these courses are done in first year, and they learn a lot of math and the foundations of machine learning, data science, programming. Everything is done in the year 1. And year 2, they start doing more focused machine learning and data science courses. And year 3 is more for advanced electives and capstone projects, right? And then at the end of the 3 years, you get a basic degree program. And the entry, you don't have to do JEE or any fancy entrance exams.
Webinar.
Yeah.
You do
If you talk, it'll in 5 minutes.
You should do a month of our coursework and then write an exam at the end of it, right? If you clear the exam, then you go on to the next level. So anybody who has completed standard 12 with I believe English and math as one of the subjects, it could be you could have done it through the commerce batch also. It doesn't matter, right? So that's essentially what we're doing. And so this is the course. The exams and the quizzes will be in person. There'll be a lot of interaction online with the students and the faculty, and also a bunch of other support material that will be given. And at every level of the program, a student will receive some kind of an acknowledgement. So it could be either a certificate from IIT Madras for completing the foundation courses, or a diploma in data science, or a diploma in programming based on what courses you do in year 2. And then finally, if you complete all the requirements, you get a degree in year 3. So this is something that we have. So this is really, so the entry is, like I said, right, just through a qualified exam after you go through our 1 month of our content. This content is freely available to everybody, right? And so after you go through this 1 month content, you write an exam based on that. There's no special coaching, training, and other things are required. Sorry. And anybody who has passed standard 12, like I said, and any age, any discipline, anywhere in India, it's fine. So there are slightly more caveats to this, but by and large, we wanted to be as inclusive as possible. The whole idea is to make sure that we get as many people who want to study on board, and not necessarily keep them out.
The first time IITs are doing anything like this?
Yes, first time anybody is doing anything like this. So for more details, please visit onlinedegree.iitm.ac.in. So we are, so we are really thrilled about this program that we are running, right? So they have a couple of more minutes. I'm going to say, I'm assuming the answer is yes. I'm going to talk about our Robert Bosch Center for Data Science and AI. So this is a center funded by Bosch. And we started operations in 2017. And so we do a lot of fundamental research in areas like deep learning, many of the fundamental areas of AI, right? And also looking at some of the soft things like ethics, fairness, explainability, and social implications of AI, and those things and so. Right. So this is a interdisciplinary department. Interdisciplinary center that has people from 10 different departments part of it. Faculty from 10 different departments, including computer science and other branches of engineering, and humanities, biology, and social sciences and mathematics. Right. So we have a lot of people who are part of the center. Has about 100 people working in. Right. And so we collaborate extensively with companies, with NGOs, with the government. But more importantly, we also are involved in a lot of socially relevant projects, whether it be helping the Innovate Ambulance Service, or looking at neonatal and health, or looking at preterm health, and so on and so forth. We also do a lot of training programs for the government. And so we run that 5-year dual degree program in data science I was telling you about. And we have a whole bunch of other workshops and opportunities for people to interact with the center. And so we offer many fellowships, scholarships, and other things at the center. And I don't want to get into the details of all of this. You can look at our webpage. So we are on all social media, so you can look for RBC-DSAI in any of these spaces, and you should find us. And the details of many of these schemes and programs and projects are available on the webpage. So just to conclude, the way forward for AI is undoubtedly successful in some specific domains, and we are now look for broadening the applications of AI, especially in a place like India, where we can think about agriculture, primary health, not necessarily just in radiology and other things, but looking at improving primary health and so on and so forth. Right, a lot of things, many opportunities for growth. Whether you want to get into the training side of things, or whether you want to get into research, product development, services. A lot of opportunities in India for growing in this field, right? And both the government and the industry are very gung ho about it, and I think it's a great time to get into AI, data science, machine learning. But there's a caveat. So the current AI-based systems understanding of how the world behaves is equivalent to that of a 2-year-old.
2-year-old, okay.
Right? They don't really, they don't really have what you would call common sense.
Okay.
They have a long way to go to human-like performance. They can be easily fooled, so you have to be very careful about how you. Some of you might have looked at some of the controversies that are coming out where AI is doing some really bad things, right? So you have to be very careful about how you use AI. I always say the biggest danger for AI is not the Terminator kind of a scenario, is because some company is going to go out and deploy an AI system that is not yet ready. Right? So it's good old human greed is the danger from AI, not the AI itself. Right?
Okay.
So here are some suggested material if people want to read more about AI. And I'm a professor, right? So I have to give you textbooks. So the first one is an actual standard textbook, which I call as the AI Bible, right? But then these other 4 books here are for people, more general audience. Right?
Okay.
That these are something that people could pick up to read. So thank you.
Okay.
So any questions? Wonderful. I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, wonderful. Let me just
should
video.
I stop sharing the screen, or do you have questions?
Yeah. Can you do that? Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor. You really, from the basics, you made so many things understandable. Before that, a request to the audience, the chat box is open, so please send in your questions. My colleague Shilpa is also there with me. The 2 of us will ask those questions to the professor. A little clarification from machine learning to deep learning. What happened? Is it a matter of different kinds of algorithms or what?
Yes, machine learning to deep learning is essentially a slightly different algorithm. The algorithms themselves, right? The basic algorithms themselves have been around since at least the 80s, right? So what really changed 3 things, right? One, the data, right? Large volumes of data became available, right? So it turns out that in the 80s, when we are trying to solve problems, it just turns out we didn't have enough data to solve some of the problems that we are solving now, and the volumes of data is really large, right? And the second thing that happened is that we had really fast machines now, which you didn't have access to in the 80s. Like all the GPUs and other things have come and they've changed the scenario significantly. And the third thing, there have been advances in the algorithm side, right?
Okay.
But not a fundamental difference, but there are some smaller changes in exactly how you do the optimization for finding out the parameters for the learning algorithm.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that, I mean, I don't know how technical you want me to get, but that has been
Okay.
these have been the three
Okay.
major
Cool.
changes.
Okay.
So that is essentially what has given this what made deep learning successful.
Okay. 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 One
It's a
question.
kind of machine learning. Yeah.
Okay, we may come back to that later, but already I can see people are excited about your online course. There's already
Aha,
question
I
from
thought so. Yeah.
from Ramakrishna. For the
Yeah.
online course on AI being offered by IITM, will the online classes be live or recorded?
They will be recorded classes, but they'll have significant TA support on so there'll be a lot of question forums, and then there'll be a lot of interactions and things like that. And we will arrange periodic interaction sessions, live interaction sessions with either the faculty who's teaching it or senior mentors. Right. So this could be people from the industry. This could be people, alumni, and things like this. So we'll periodically arrange these kinds of interaction sessions as well. That would be live, but the lectures themselves would be recorded.
Will be recorded. And there, you said there's no limit to the number of students you can who they pass the test to get it. No, not
Yeah,
sure.
I mean that's where we want to go.
Get to.
Right, but that's where we want to get to. But maybe the year one,
You
we may put a cap.
Yeah, because if you're offering teacher assistants and all that, then yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. But we also want to work out the kinks in the system, right? So,
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay.
so we don't want to just say, oh, we'll allow 200,000 people to take, and then find that things don't scale that well, right?
Okay.
So I think the first cohort, the training, the 1 month of courses, will start sometime in November. I think the call for the portal is up, but the admissions have not opened yet, so it should open very shortly.
And you will hold that test periodically. What's the plan?
I would suggest that you look at the page, but the test would happen three times a year.
3 times a year. Okay.
So we are hoping that there will be 3 quote unquote semesters every year. We're not hoping. We are planning to have 3 semesters per year. So for every semester, at the beginning of every semester, we'll have a test.
Okay.
So that the new people who want to get in, say somebody wants to get in at semester 2, they can start as well.
Okay. Shilpa?
We have a question from Lakshmanan and Vasishta. Are there any ML conferences centered around only in India where Indian researchers meet and discuss their progress? Also, any online forums for students to collaborate?
So let me answer the first question. So we have this conference on data science and conference on management of data. It's a joint conference. So this has been happening now for 8 years now, and this is the largest forum for Indian researchers to gather. So last 2 editions we have had more than 500 people. This is not a commercial conference, right? I mean, those get a lot of people, right? But this is more a research-oriented conference where you would see people doing serious research get together and discuss. And we get nearly 50% attendance from industry, 50% from academia. So this has been a pretty popular thing. In fact, I had a couple of slides on it. I took it out for a lot of time. So this is the conference on data science. So you can look it up. And so this is a place where a lot of interaction happens. So this year will most probably be online because of the COVID situation. It was originally planned to be in Bangalore. It was going to be in the IIIT Bangalore campus. This is Electronic City. The venue was supposed to be in Electronic City this year.
Okay.
But we are still not 100% confirmed it, but highly likely that it would stay as a virtual conference. But still, that will give you a lot of opportunity to interact with people, right? And I'm not 100% sure what you mean by students meet and collaborate. I mean, there are places like Kaggle, which a lot of Indian people are very active on, right? So you can get there and do all kinds of competitions and things like that. But if you're looking for collaborations, I'm not 100. It's not entirely clear to me. So there is an initiative called AI for Bharat.
Yeah.
That's being run by a couple of my colleagues from IIT Madras, where they do offer a lot of projects for students. And they do, when students, sign up for the different projects, they put them together as teams, right? So maybe that is something that you could check out,
Okay, in AI, I mean, like Moore's law, computing power doubling every 18 months. That kind of have you detected any pattern like that in AI? How things are improving?
I mean, in some sense, AI is doing great in one way. But then the other thing, the AI is like stuck in infancy. Like I was telling you about.
2 years old.
AI is, relies all the machine learning, not AI, right? I mean, AI is broader than machine learning. Machine learning relies largely on correlations.
Okay.
Right. So, okay, if I see this kind of pattern, then I see that output. I mean, that's the kind of correlations you get, right? They don't say that, okay, these kind of patterns cause that kind of output.
Okay.
So that technology is still in its infancy.
Infancy.
Right? So until that develops, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to quantify it. Right? One of the things I can tell you is that from the hardware growth point of view, right? As the hardware keeps growing, the AI systems are going to solve harder and harder problems.
Okay.
Right? So just because once you start amassing a lot of data, then you can start, basing sound decisions even on correlations.
Okay.
Right? And for you to crunch more and more data, you need more and more powerful hardware. Right? But to quantify something like Moore's law, right? It's going to be hard in the AI setting.
Oh, this hardware, is that the reason why Google, everybody is trying to develop their own chips and all that kind of things?
Yes. Power, low power.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the general purpose hardware just take too much power. Right?
Oh, I see.
So people are making more specific things tailor-made for AI computations or machine learning computations. So
okay.
You can optimize on the power.
Shilpa?
We have a question from Nitin Belvi. Could people with no prior knowledge take the online BSc course?
Well, we are assuming you have passed +2 and done at least English and math in +2. Right? That is the requirement that we have. And if you are keen to learn and you can learn enough from that 1 month of material that you go through and you're able to clear the exam, then you should be able to do the course. We assume that that's only prior knowledge we assume. So we've done at least +2 level math and English.
Okay.
One more question around the same course. It is from Preetar. As it's a 3-year course, how do you expect the prospects to be in 3 years of time?
Much better than it is right now. No, I'll tell you the reason for that, right? So COVID has been a game changer, right? So there's a lot of things that have changed around, right? And one of the things that COVID is going to enable, like I was mentioning this little bit while I was talking about the job opportunities, is that it is going to open up a lot of new avenues for applications of this machine learning, data science techniques, right? Because more and more activities are going to move online. Right. So I don't know how if you saw that, you must have seen it recently, right? The online payments have just zoomed, right? So now there are a lot of opportunities now. Once you start getting a significant fraction of the population on online payment, there's so much opportunity for you to start doing, learning there and customizing packages for you. So that's something that people have not started doing yet, right? So I mean, so like that, right? So as more and more of these things are going to move online, you're going to get. And already a lot of jobs are open. So we are talking about 1.2 lakh jobs this year. I mean, assuming the COVID thing will die down, and next year again you'll see this kind of job picking up, and significant amounts of investment is coming into the space. In fact, I talk to many startups, right? And the biggest challenge they have is actually hiring people who understand data science and AI. Right. So they get people who are great Java programmers, right? They get people who are great developers, but they don't understand the algorithms behind machine learning.
So what do you have to learn for that? What do you teach them for that?
It's a whole set of algorithms, right? So we have this, so we have multiple courses. I mean, so the foundations are of course statistics.
Okay.
Right, and linear algebra. I mean, if you really want a sound background to do machine learning, you need to know statistics and linear algebra. There's no getting around it. Okay. Right? You did not become a mathematician, but you should know enough to understand what is happening. Right? Without that, you'll start making choices when you're implementing things that don't make sense. Second thing is, as a developer, you should know how to put together a software project.
A software project.
Yeah, I mean, you should know how to write code. You know how to.
Okay.
You might not have to write code from scratch. There's enough libraries, just like you have with your normal IT job. There are enough libraries out there, but you should know how to put those libraries together and develop, right? And then you should know how to test, You know,
Okay.
I mean, it's something. It's not a mystery, right? So, but there are techniques for testing. Right? Just like you would have techniques for testing any kind of like a payroll code, right? I mean, so you have something for testing AI, right? So so you have to learn that, right? So and then there are these basic algorithms that are there. You don't need to know the algorithms. You don't need to know the details of the algorithms, right? But you just need to know, okay, if this is the kind of problem that you see, this is the kind of algorithm that you have to apply.
In terms of programming languages, anything particular that you have to learn?
Well, there are a lot of tools out there. The popular one would be Python now, I mean, as a language, but a lot of tools are built on top of Python. But I presume that in maybe 3-4 years time, you will evolve to a point where, the actual programming that you do is very minimal.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you should have the more comfortable you are with the tool use, the better.
With the tools you're saying, is it?
Tools, yeah.
Okay.
We are not yet at that point where you can do complete development from just based on tools. I'm saying a few years down the line.
Okay.
Yeah. But right now, if you're going to ask me for a recommendation, I'll say first learn Python.
Okay.
Then learn R.
Okay. We just in today's page we carried a thing about how R is becoming more and more popular.
Yes.
Why? It's because it's faster to write in that, or what is it?
It's designed for data analytics, right?
What is it?
So it makes it. I mean, there are a lot of functions and other things that are there. Makes it much easier for you to develop code.
Okay.
And many of the built-in things that you have, right? Many R libraries that are there will do a bunch of pre-processing, the standard procedures that you have to do. Right? You don't have to write code for it. You can just write one line, do it. Right? The same thing happens with Python. I mean, so it's just a kind of mindset that you're used to. R is slightly easier to code in some sense.
Okay.
But Python has a lot more bells and whistles than R does.
Okay.
But people are now adding more and more capabilities to R. So at some point of time, I think
it'll become
equally capable. Yeah.
Shilpa?
Yeah, we have a question from Sebin. It's also a similar question asked by Bhagat. What kind of coding skills can one acquire through the course offered by IIT Madras?
Which one? Online?
I
think
I'm assuming the online course.
Yeah. You'll be a proper programmer. Otherwise, you won't pass the course. You'll be a proper programmer. So I believe we teach Python and R in the program. Right, and you also have a CS curriculum. It's not just only a data science thing, right? It's a programming and data science degree. So you'll learn data structures, you'll learn algorithms, you'll learn multiple programming languages, right? You'll learn a bit of software engineering, you'll learn database systems. I mean, please go to the webpage. The syllabus is there. Right?
Syllabus is there.
Yeah. So at least the topics that are being covered are there. Even if you don't have a very detailed syllabus, the subjects, some of the core subjects should be there, right? And it's a degree in programming and data structures. In fact, even if you drop out at the end of the second year, right, you have an option of graduating with a diploma, either in data science or in programming.
Okay.
Right? So we can give you a diploma in programming on computer systems, right? Or you can get a diploma in data science, so depending on what fraction of courses you are able to complete. But if you want to go to the third year and earn the degree, you have to have earned both the diplomas first. You should have done enough courses to earn both the diploma, and then you go to the third year and then finish your degree. So it's a fairly detailed curriculum. It is not watered down. If you look at the number of credits the students have to do, it's equivalent to any 3-year physical program.
Right.
And when we say credit, and we mean as much work as you would do in a physical program. So 1 credit would be equal to 1 credit of work that you do in a physical program. It's not at all a watered down.
Okay. This is a question from one of our colleagues, Swati Rathore, and this question is often asked. How can you ensure that AI is ethical and not biased in terms of gender, race, religion? Do the biases of the creators creep into the AI they create?
So the answer is yes, it will creep in, right? So the question is, how vigilant are you in trying to keep it out, right?
Okay.
And the people in AI are becoming more and more aware of this, right? And in fact, if you think about it, right? So there is a study that says that breast cancer medication is extraordinarily effective in women, not in men, even though men have breast cancer. It's just not something that is known. You know why? Because when they did all the drug studies, most of the volunteers were women.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So this kind of biases introduced by data have been around not just in AI, right? It's been around all through. Right? I was telling you about this system that made decisions on bails, right? If you remember, I was telling you about
Yeah.
So it turned out that system is now not used anymore because it was, being very harsh on black men, African American men.
Okay.
Right? So it said that no, deny them bail. Right?
Okay.
Even though under the same circumstances, if it had been a white male, the person would have been granted bail, when it was saying denied for. So these kinds of biases creep in, right? Because of the data, right? And
how do you correct it then?
I'm not going to be an apologist for data. So I'm not going to be a data apologist. You have to correct it. There are mechanisms for correcting it in algorithmically. Using algorithms, right? You have to be watching out for biases. You have to test the system to see if there are biases, right? And people should start insisting that before they buy a product from somebody, right? Okay, what are the bias testing have you done? I mean, how biased is it against gender? So this is why I said it's important for everybody to know AI, right? Not necessarily if you're an AI developer. So you need to ask these kinds of questions, right?
Okay.
And there is technology coming up. We can't be 100% correct yet, but there is technology coming up that is allowing us to become more and more balanced against this, right? And of course, there's always this question, right? I mean, what does fairness mean? Right? In terms of educational admissions, which is what I'm very familiar with, what is fair in Tamil Nadu is not fair in UP. Right? So even in India, I mean, this kind of fairness definitions vary all around, right? So for the Indian context, it's even more nuanced than not just putting hashtag BLM. Right? In India, it's a lot more nuanced in terms of what constitutes fairness and ethical use of AI and things like that. So at our center, we have started a research program where we are beginning to study that, looking at how it's going to affect Indian society and things like that. But it's a very, very active area of research. But more importantly, organizations, companies are now beginning to wake up to this. There are several, for example, very recently, right? Many companies started pulling out their facial recognition tools or the data sets that they had put in made available publicly for people to train, mainly because both the data and the tools were biased towards white men. They were able to recognize them more effectively than people of other genders and races. Right. So now, this kind of awareness is now building up in the community. So, so don't be a data apologist. Don't say that the data is biased, therefore it's biased. But there are ways of.
So one single system can deal with a case in Tamil Nadu and in UP, or will it have to be two different systems?
It's an active area of research. I would expect that you might have to do some modifications.
Okay.
I mean, you don't sell the same car in the mountains as you sell in the plains.
Okay.
So why should it be different with AI?
So is this the same when people ask about explainability of AI? Is the same issue involved?
It's related, not necessarily the same issue. So the explainability is more about say there are two things here. Suppose I conclude that there is a dog in the picture. Now, can I explain to you why is there a dog in the picture? Okay, that seems trivial, right? Almost a farcical example. But suppose you apply for a loan to a bank, and I tell you are not getting a loan. Now, wouldn't you demand an explanation as to why am I not getting the loan? That is the first explanation you will demand. The second explanation you will demand is what should I do different to get a loan? Right? So there is this explainability, and there is also the redressal. Right? So both of these are important, and so AI is waking up to this, right? So at least for the visual processing, the cat and dog kind of things, right? We have some handle on how to do the explainability, right? But on things like this kind of loan decisions and so on and so forth, it's still a little more challenging. Right?
Okay.
Non-visual it's still more challenging. But we're making tremendous progress. I mean, nobody talked about explainability 3-4 years back. Right?
Okay.
Now you're getting a lot of papers out there, and also tools that people can implement, and it's becoming. The reason people are putting in so much effort, right? I think there is regulatory pressure to build explanatory AI, explainable AI, right? And then also talk about redressal mechanisms. So once that comes in, right, then it becomes hard to monetize AI unless you satisfy those. Right? So all the companies will have to put in effort. So whether I'm being a little cynical, but that's a pragmatic view. I mean, so saying being fair to humanity is one thing, but that will come eventually. But we start putting this kind of regulatory pressure, that will come faster.
Okay.
Right. So that's happening. I mean, so for example, in Europe, if you are using AI for making any decision in the banking sector, you need to have this the redressal thing also.
Okay.
You don't have to explain things, but if you, I can't give you a loan now, but tomorrow, if you increase your income by another $300 or 300 euros, I can give you an income, or I can give you a loan, or something like that. I have to give a redressal mechanism.
Okay. Shilpa, are there questions?
Yeah, there's a question from Jogesh. What is the scope of decision science and engineering in India for someone looking to do masters in the field?
So I mean, decision science is very, very related to data science, right? I mean, all the decision making that you have, it's essentially looking at more closely at things like utility theory and game theory and decision theory and so on and so forth. And I would say that as much scope as you would have for any data scientist, data engineer, you would certainly have that, right? So I wouldn't be able to put a number on it, but then these are all slightly different flavors of. In fact, at some point of time, we even had a debate on whether we should call our center decision science center or data science center. So I wouldn't distinguish it too much from a job opportunity point of view. I mean, I'm not saying that they are not different sets of subjects that you learn, but from a job opportunity point of view, it will be very similar to what you see for a data scientist.
Is it true that AI courses are the most in demand in the IITs? I mean,
in the world. Yeah, I mean, 5 years back, Stanford's AI course had 800 people taking it. There's a physical AI course. I'm not talking about their books.
Okay.
So we have similar. We don't have similar demand. We don't have 800 students, but our classes run to 100 plus, 150, 200 students easily across all IITs.
And those in other streams also want to take AI credit courses.
Yes. I mean, like I said, right? I personally believe that AI is a very fundamental technology. Right? You should have some exposure to it, right? So we should. I mean, every college should teach a AI awareness course at least. What does AI mean to you? I'm not talking about engineering colleges. I'm talking about law colleges. I'm talking about commerce, arts and science colleges. Everybody.
Okay.
Talking about at least like this, I don't know, evening course on what AI means for your profession. Like they talk about ethics, right? Professional ethics in every profession, right? So you should have a AI impact in everything. That's
another question. It's from Mahesh. Do you think AI-focused startups in India can make it big, like say to the level of DeepMind and OpenAI? How far are we from seeing such a startup in India?
It's nothing to do with AI. The Indian startup ecosystem is still weak.
Is it?
Because the market is not there in India.
Market for what?
The market for whatever you do, right? Most of the successful startups that I see in India very quickly migrate to the US, right? Or to Europe. Because that is where the people are willing to pay.
Is it?
Right? Whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in AI tech, right? Whether it be in, back office services, so very few people who succeed big time in India. But if you look at it, they're like Olas and Flipkart, where their model, Paytms, where their model is tied to the country, right? And then there are different kinds of businesses that succeed. So if you think about
it, really?
Yeah. So Ola uses a lot of AI.
Okay. Right? What they do?
They do. Paytm is beginning to use significant amounts of AI.
Okay.
Right? Flipkart has one of the larger AI research groups in the industry in the country.
Okay.
So all of these guys have AI as an enabling technology, right?
I see.
So if you think about it, AI is an enabling technology. So
So
DeepMind, for example, doesn't make money.
okay.
They make huge amounts of losses, and completely underwritten by Larry Page, right? No, but they're doing amazing things as far as technology is concerned.
Research in
They're doing, the research. I mean, they're really pushing the envelope on AI, right? But if you think about whether they're commercially successful,
they're not.
they're not.
Okay.
And I wouldn't classify DeepMind or OpenAI as a typical startup.
Okay.
Because they are bankrolled by a lot of philanthropic spending. Right? In the case of DeepMind, it's almost exclusively Larry Page. And
okay.
in the case of OpenAI, there are a bunch of different people, including guys like Elon Musk, who have put in some money there. Right? They are not generating money yet.
I see.
So it will come, maybe. But the thing to keep in mind is AI is really an enabling technology. What can I do? I mean, I can provide a translation service through AI. But I need people to, for example, I'm just giving you an example. This is not the only thing. I can say that I'm going to give a machine translation service, but I need people come and build products on top of it, right? That use the machine translation service, right? So if I put out a machine translation app on my Google, on my Play Store, right? So people might download it if it's for free. I mean, if I'm saying that you have to buy, unless they have a business need for it, they're not going to come. Okay, so AI is an enabling technology. Just to say that there will be an AI startup that will make it big, there would be, but there will be few. You need another business idea that sits on top of the AI.
Okay.
That uses the AI technologies to solve hard problems that have not been solved. It could be an agriculture startup.
Okay.
That is enabled by AI, right? It could be a logistics startup that is enabled by AI. If you say that I have an AI startup, right?
Okay, that doesn't make sense. So you're saying there is opportunity in India. Okay.
Makes sense. But it'll be like an AI services startup. I'll be providing AI as a service to somebody, and then somebody else will have to take it up and build something that's of value to you. Right?
But you're saying there are opportunities in India.
There are opportunities in India. We have to find the right sector and then go in there, right? I mean, defense is one.
Okay, defense.
I don't like that.
Okay.
That's one. Agriculture is another. We have to solve problems for Indian society, right? Education is another. So AI-enabled education services and things like that. So there are sectors that we should look for. And for transportation, because Indian transportation challenges are slightly different from other places, right? The volumes that we handle, no one else handles. The Indian Railway handles, right? Well, used to handle. Pre-COVID, right? So those are some challenges which doesn't happen anywhere else, right? So China, yes, but nobody knows what happens in China. But outside of that, so there are sectors in India where we have to figure out, right? And we have to figure out the right monetization. We seem to be solving, the first world problems in our startups also. Okay. Therefore, you find your market in the first world.
Okay, Shilpa, have any questions?
Yes, there are two questions. The first one is, can one be working in the field of ML without coding? This is from Rishab. And the second question is, will there be any moment in future where AI will surpass human intellect? From Radhakant God.
The answer to the first question, no. Okay, and the answer to the second question, so it's a little dicey, right? So what do you mean by human intellect? Right? Humans are extraordinarily versatile. Right? The same AI agent, right? That managed to beat a human in the computer vision task, right? That Imagenet thing I was telling you. The same AI is not the one that got better performance in speech recognition.
Okay.
So we are trying to come to a point where we call artificial general intelligence. I don't like the term. It's called AGI, right? So people are talking about AGI, and then where there will be a single artificial intelligent agent that should solve all tasks.
All of these.
Right?
Okay.
All
okay.
of these. Yeah, way
Way far away from that.
Way far away from it. See, I for one would always like to keep options open. So I'm not going to say no, that machines will never surpass humans in intelligence, but it's going to take a long time.
Okay. As lay people, Shilpa and I went to the Manipal Hospital in Bangalore once and saw IBM's what do they call Watson, demonstrating how, it looked absolutely fascinating at one level. Yeah. So the moment some details are given about the patient, immediately some diagnosis and recommendations come. It all looked absolutely fascinating and it almost looked like, doctors could vanish in a few years. But yet it hasn't really taken off. Where do you think things are not really happening?
So it's again the question of versatility, right? So in some sense, can I give you a completely unrelated example? Okay, then you'll see the problem with the current state of the art. Okay, so we were working with a company where we were looking at examining, we're working with some data. We're looking at examining gearheads through visual.
Gearheads, okay.
Gearheads, and then trying to figure out if there's a fault in the gearhead. Right? And then we trained this system that was amazingly good. And then when we tested it on, about 730 images or something, it made about 3 errors. 3 mistakes out of 730. So you'd think that's a great system, right? Much better than humans. Okay. So 2 of those errors, right, it turned out to be very minor things, right? I can say, okay, yeah, that's fine, it makes a mistake. But the third error that it made was a gearhead that was cracked in 2 pieces.
Okay.
And it said that's a perfectly okay gear. This is not a mistake that even like a 5-year-old would have made, right? You give something, you show something which is all in 1 piece and then show something that is in 2 pieces.
Okay.
He's going to say, hey, that's broken.
Okay.
Right. But the agent that we trained had only seen examples, right? It's just trying to learn from examples. It has never seen an example where the gear was broken, right? So, and the 2 broken pieces looked like they did not have any faults in them.
Okay.
So they said, yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Right. And then we go back and talk to the person. That person says, sir, I've been doing this inspection for 10 years. I have never seen a gear this broken. So this seems to be a very rare occurrence.
Okay. So the system was never fed that. It never learned that.
But then how sure are you that you can cover everything when you generate this kind of training examples? Right? So what we really need is some kind of a first principles idea that a gear at the least, right, has to be whole. Right? You can talk about small pittings, micro cracks and stuff like that, but at least it has to be whole. Right? Of course, you can always say that, oh, yeah, you should have thrown it out in the beginning. Why should you even pass it to the inspection, things like that? But I'm just demonstrating a point here. Right? Okay. So that is still this thing, right? So I'm not 100% comfortable putting in the AI system in making decisions. Making diagnosis is fine. As a clinical decision support system is fine.
Fine,
but
replace
a clinician.
Okay, got it. One last question.
Yeah.
Okay. One last question from a audience. Can someone who's worked in a different field for 10-15 years take up IITM's online course on AI?
The answer is yes, but please look at the web page to make sure you qualify. So we don't have any bar on the degree that you have done or the age or the sector that you are working in. Right, as long as you're willing to go through the the initial thing and write the qualifying exam and then get into the program, you are free to. Right? We also have a lateral entry for the diploma. Right, you remember if you finish 2 years, you get a diploma. So you could directly join in the second year if you pass the first year exams, right? Without taking the first year courses. If you pass the first year exams, you can directly join in the second year. But you have to leave in the second year. And basically, you can do all the courses. You can leave with a diploma in data science or a diploma in programming. So unless you do all the 3 years, you can't get a degree.
Okay. Okay.
But if you do all the 3 years, you get a BSc degree, and it's
Yes.
open to everybody.
Okay.
So even
Okay.
if you have been working for 10, 15 years, you are. But remember that it is a rigorous program. So if you think that you're going to do this, keeping your full-time job and doing it in the evening, no, you can still do it. I mean, it's
You
not
can
that
do
it's
it.
not possible.
You can
do
go
it
up to
at a
6 years,
slower
you said.
pace. Yes, you can go up to 6 years. You
Mm.
can go at a slower pace.
Okay. Shilpa, anything?
No more questions.
That's it.
That's
No, I think you're going to be flooded with applications for this course, Professor.
I think so. Yeah, we're going to open it shortly.
Okay.
The application actually will open shortly, and then let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So my colleagues who are actually running the program, right? I'm not actually in charge of the program.
Okay.
Andrew Tangaraj is the director for the program. So he's
Okay.
been going around giving a lot of talks. And again, wherever we have gone, we have seen significant interest in this program.
I'm sure. Even on our pages, this page that we started about a year ago, same thing. I mean, we can track what is being read, what is not, anything related to AI, ML and all that. Huge response. Wonderful talking to you, Professor. It was, I mean, from the basics to more complex things. I mean, a lot of it was really good understanding for us. And I'm sure our audience enjoyed it as well. Thanks a lot. Hope to have you again sometime.
I had fun. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah.
Thanks to you and to the audience. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Bye.